Hey, what's up everybody? Bdf 44 coming at you another video. This weather feels much better than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be really hot, but it's an extremely cool breeze. It ain't hot right now. I can imagine it's going to get a little hotter. It's approaching 1, I guess, so usually starts cooking around 4, around 3, something like that, and this heat starts to set in from the day's sunlight. But yeah, man, I prayed a lot before making this video, man. I prayed a lot before making this video. I want to really get this one right. The verdict from Diddy was in, and he was found mixed to guilty, not guilty on some charges. He has a chance to get out today. They give him, if they give him bail, which I think at 3 p.m. Pacific, he's expected to be offered whatever it would be to offer. I don't know, $1 million bail, and he could only travel to certain states, including this one, and he would also have that freedom only until sentencing time. So he probably will have to face some sort of time, but it's not going to be for the RICO, it's not going to be for sex trafficking, it's going to be for prostitution. So I'd imagine, without having any real understanding, that some of that, if not all of it, it would be considered time served. And you know, he may have to do a year or something like that, I don't know, but I don't think he's going to do no real time. He's going to get out. Some point he's going to get out. That's really what it comes down to. He's not going to spend the rest of his life in jail. I don't think he's going to do big time based on the charges that have been dropped, or found not guilty rather. And you know, I think, I mean, listening to listening to the commentary that's going on around this thing, there's a conversation to be had about wanting to see justice for victims who've been given, you know, dealt the wrong hand in regards to their experiences. And sometimes when you see stuff like this, you see a great deal of individuals who are angered by the fact that this person didn't go to jail, but they approach it as if they're saying they want him to represent being made an example of, and that's anything less than that is not justice. But I think every case deserves its own experiences. It deserves its own day in court. And if we allow people who are providing them that opinion to judge, jury, and dare I say execute people, there are going to be people who go to jail or get their lives taken from them, not based on the crimes that they were alleged to or charged with, but what was done to those who are feeling that way, or the loved ones of those who are vehement about seeing people who are accused be made example of. And I just don't think, a lot of times people tend to want punishment just because the accusation's in place, and to believe all victims. You know, I appreciated listening to the Joe Budden podcast, because one of the panelists up there made me clear on what believe all victims is truly meant to represent. It's about not necessarily assuming that no one's lying when they accuse someone of something, but to approach them with a certain level of belief, a great deal of belief, until what has been said is proven to be false. Rather than approach it assuming that they're lying, approach it as if they are telling the truth, which is, I guess, a necessary environment for those who've been through trauma, when they provide themselves the courage or muster up the courage to tell. They need that environment to be sensitive to them. For those who are telling the truth, this is what is best for their psyche and for their well-being, and ultimately for what is needed for them to be able to continue forward with trying to get justice for their abuse. That was important for me because a lot of times in hearing that statement, believe all victims, I just assume that we blanketed the idea that no one lies about what has happened to them or that anything happened to them at all. And I just think in a world like this, full of corruption and nuance and the fluidity of people being honest and dishonest and forthcoming and whatnot, it's so very obvious that being willing to trust everyone who accuses anyone of any type of assault is an extremely irresponsible position to take, even if everyone agrees that it's most acceptable. It still feels, dangerously irresponsible to assume that no one is lying when they come forward with whatever they accuse someone of. And so that clarity provided me the understanding of what that is supposed to actually represent and why. And I needed that for my own scope. I don't believe this is the conversation when it comes to this Diddy trial, based on the stuff that I seen in that trial, based on the stuff that's been unearthed about this man. I don't think this is the hill to die on as it pertains to, I'm mad at all of y'all who are saying this and that about Diddy because he's been found not guilty and therefore we need to just move on and all that. I'm not doing that with him because he did so much that was agreed to have been done, that has been proven to be done, that I do think this guy has proven himself to be a rather despicable human being. I think he's proven that. I think that case proved that. And whether he makes changes or not is irrelevant. What's done is done. And what he showed, I'm not going to be defending him on this camera. That's not going to happen. The stuff that he engaged in, the behaviors that he engaged in, maybe you didn't find him guilty of this and that, but I see him as somebody who likely should be held accountable further for what it is that was revealed and what it is that we saw. He did some nasty stuff. Maybe not everything that everyone said he did or accused him of, but the stuff he did was bad, and I think he proved himself to be a bad guy, period. And I think that's what ultimately my point of view on Diddy is. I don't think I ever look at him the right way anymore. I always looked at him as a guy who had a lot of stuff attached to his name. I always wondered if certain things that happened in the past had to do with his intentions and his power. Always heard stuff about him that wasn't all that great. And so I always had a scope on Diddy that was side-eyed. But now, after this case, just like everybody else, we are aware of how he got down, how he gets down, basically. And I do think if you free him and let him, quote unquote, get away with what he's done, he'll get right back to it. I do think he'll get right back to it. I don't know if you have the funds and the capability of getting back to the level he was on, but as far as him, like, just turning away from his lustful ways, I think he was too far gone for that. And I don't think him getting away with this, so to speak, did anything for trying to deter the behavior. So I expect for him to get back to freaking off. I expect for him to get back to doing weird stuff and treating women poorly, because that's, I think, how far gone he actually is. To even though he went through this, I don't think he changes. I still think he's going to keep being that person. And I think it's a lot of what it is that we're seeing in regards to him has to do with his money, how good his lawyers were based on his money, how many other people who are famous and of influence are likely involved in some of the other stuff that he could be charged with, how a lot of this stuff just got swept away. When we thought this brother was initially getting investigated and they confiscated all types of videotapes and stuff like that, with all the different celebrities that went to these freak-offs, these parties, and all the different names that were said to have alleged been this or that, now all of a sudden, this is what the case is revealed to be about. It just comes down to him being a prostitute frequenter type thing. Like, I just think that a lot of stuff got that he was involved in got swept under the rug because of everybody else who was possibly involved in it. And I think that corruption had a lot to do with what we saw in this case. This wasn't what this case was supposed to be. We were supposed to have been revealed so many different things about so many different people based on them all partying with him. And all of a sudden, there ain't nothing to say about him, or rather, nothing to say about anyone else but him. And I was supposed to walk away from this thinking this was the up and up on the case. That's all the feds found. Is this just what we were revealed in these last 6-7 weeks? No, I think corruption had a lot to do with what it is we see here. Him willing to stay silent had a lot to do with what we see here. And the presence of just how flawed our judicial system is when you consider it's not necessarily about whether or not a person is guilty or innocent. It's about how well lawyers can perform in their sport. That's what it really comes down to. How well are these litigators at doing their job? And you get what you pay for. So if you have all the money in the world, you're going to have the best lawyers who perform the best, and they're going to find a way to convince a jury by way of the millions of different ways that whatever you did or didn't do didn't go the way that it's being accused. And if there's enough reasonable doubt to get you off. This is a science that has been mastered by people who are really great at what they do. And it's not about whether or not you did it or didn't do it. It's about whether or not your side can prove you did not do what you've been accused. It's a sport, man. It's a sport. And just like in any sport of any league, if you have the right amount of money, you can get the best ones. You can get the best basketball players if you got the right money. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And so I just think that this has become more about that and less about justice. And I think the entire judicial system and the way that we approach these circumstances need to be reimagined. I think it needs to be reimagined completely. I don't even think we approach law in a very sophisticated way. I think it's intricate, I think it's mastered, and I think it's bullcrap, to be honest with you. Superstar lawyers and stuff like that, and you get a guy off for something you know damn well he did, but they argued the case and manipulated the thing so well to like, yeah, he gets off. That guy gets off. That's what I think we saw here, man. Not to say that he did everything that they accused him of, but it's really about the superstar versus the superstars going at it, and the defense just happened to win the game. That's what I think. That's a legitimate thought here. Also, something that was brought up yesterday in some commentary was that because of how this thing was set up, if he was found guilty of the worst of charges, he was going to have all his assets seized. That right there, that presence of that being the case, is compromisable. That's compromisable. Because what ends up happening is the people who he's likely covering for, now, if he loses all his assets, because everything about this billionaire game is about my money and what I own. Like, I got to own everything. So if I don't have nothing left, if they take everything from me, the only thing left for me to do is snitch on everybody I've been covering for. That means you, and you who didn't have to testify in my case. Now, I'm likely going to write a book about you bastards. So you better use your influence to make damn sure that this judge and that panel of jurors don't take my assets from me. So whatever that looks like, you got to make it happen. He ain't even got to say nothing. It's the essence of the environment that makes it so that those who have something to lose know what to do. He don't have to say nothing to no jurors. He don't have to say nothing. This is understood. It's a spoken truth. It's understood. This is what happens. This is what I'm left to do if they take everything from me. So the idea, as soon as it was mentioned that, yo, if he's found guilty on this RICO or whatever, they gonna seize all, the government's gonna seize all his assets. All right. Everybody who had any power understood what they needed to do. Anybody that he knew did what, whether they were part of his freak offs or part of something else that he was aware of, if they had any influence to assure that didn't happen, it was in their best interest to make sure it didn't happen so that his mouth didn't open about what he knows about them. And because of that, this entire process was easily defined in my eyes as compromised. It was easily, you could just see the environment of it. It's compromised, fam. And I want people to understand that. This is compromise. I'm not saying that he did or did not, whatever, what have you. But I'm telling you that the environment from which this case is taking place, based on who he is and who he used to bump elbows with, it was compromised. Before it even started, that case was compromised. Sometimes you don't need to know the details. You just need to know what's at risk for and who the players could potentially be. That famous person who makes that amount of money for this company, that government official who's likely in bed with those people over there who are doing this and that, yeah, no, he ain't gonna get caught up for nothing, because he know they secrets. He gonna blow up everything. Stuff that ain't even got nothing to do with him, he could blow up. Just if he opened his mouth. And if he opens his mouth, he gonna tell on that person, and that person knows too much. It ain't even gotta be about Diddy knowing too much. He just has the ability to risk and expose somebody who knows too much, to where if they open their mouth, then you start seeing things fall. This is like 1 degree of separation from the entire thing falling apart. So for me, it's like, because I know that this is the environment he's in, I never expected his case to be on the up and up. I never expected for him to actually get convicted of all of this stuff once I found out that they could seize all his assets if they do. Hell no, not him. He know too much. He know too much. Or he knows something secret about somebody who knows too much. And that's a degree of separation that really keeps corruption intact. That's why they say it's not what you know, it's who you know. This is why. This is what ends up going wrong. Because if you know enough people, eventually you know enough to protect yourself, even if you're doing wrong. This is what's wrong with our society, amongst other things. This is why people are lying on others and telling the truth about nothing in a lot of cases, even though children is at risk and violence is being done. It's because somebody knows somebody who knows too much. And so if that person opens a mouth about this person has leverage that they're going to use to get themselves out of trouble. That leverage could blow everything up. Too many, it's too many people linked to one another in this corrupt ass country. And so when you're a celebrity that allows for people to get their rocks off at your parties, and this person bumped elbows with that person, they ain't gonna let that person go down. Hell no, they ain't letting that person go down. So if they're gonna keep you upright or knock you off to assure that doesn't happen. They ain't about to mess up their deals. They ain't about to mess up their money. And if you losing all of your money is gonna make it so that you tell, nah, they ain't gonna let that happen. And so that's why I'm like, man, Diddy was made, man, from the jump. If they was gonna, it was gonna be one of two things. Either they was gonna kill this dude or they were gonna let him off. Because him going to prison and having everything snatched from him, all that was gonna do was create the environment for him to speak on some stuff that he knows that would really tumble a lot of things down. We know that. We know that. And so, until we start removing the corruption and start weeding out this cancer of corruption in our country, this is always going to be what you see in a lot of situations, man. You're going to see this type of stuff all up and down the way. Until you start getting the corruption out of the inner workings of your government and your society and your media and all these different things and your entertainment companies, as long as there's corruption or the environment in place for which corruption can be, you're going to see the potential of stuff like this for which I just described. With that being said, based on everything that I saw in the case, I don't think that they had done enough to prove that he was sex trafficking women. I thought that they may have proved that he may have sex trafficked men. I do think that. Based on what I saw, it seemed like he was having dudes, cross state lines to engage in sexual acts for pay. So maybe they've ruled that it wasn't him that was making those transactions, based on a lot of the time it being the women next to him doing all the yapping about making things happen as it pertains to sex workers. But I thought there was enough evidence there to prove he was paying for a lot of that. You tell me. All in all, he's found not guilty. It's a lot of people unhappy about that. Some of them for the right reasons, some of them for the wrong reasons. But I think he went through what we consider a great deal of humiliation regardless. And his image, his sexuality, all of that is on the forefront. It's out in the open. Everybody knows how he gets down to the nastiest of the nasty. And he really can't walk any of that back. He did not come out. He was dragged out. And that's really what it is. He may not identify as gay or anything like that. But at this point, we know exactly what he was doing in this situation. God knows what else he was doing in other situations. But in this situation, he crossed over that line. I can tell you that much. His identity surely ain't straight. Whatever the hell he is, it ain't straight. That's his right, just as it's yours. But it is what it is, man. I want to say, what made me turn the camera on is to just say this. You know, I got women in my life, people that I care about, sisters, mothers, grandmothers, people who've passed away. I think that it's important that I tell you that your safety and your boundaries and all of those things matter. You don't deserve to be victimized in any way, brutalized in any way, put in position to feel uncomfortable by anybody for any reason. I do think there's a real conversation to be had about how much what was done in this case had to do with people choosing money over their own dignity. How much of that is victims versus Stockholm Syndrome type stuff. How much of that is them choosing the fame and the power of a man over opportunities to be treated properly. And a lot of that is beyond my wheelhouse as understanding based on my lack of psychology understanding. I don't know what makes a person tick or make a person walk into situations they shouldn't, make a person think that they are in a space of peace in one moment, in another moment feel like they're being victimized. I don't know what that is. I don't know Stockholm like that. I don't understand it. But just for the up and up of things, trying to put solidarity out there, I just want to tell all the people who follow me, you don't deserve to be victims, men or women. You don't deserve to be victimized. Your integrity and your dignity is yours to hold on to. If you decide to forego that, that's your business. But at the end of the day, I think young people tend to make mistakes before they realize what dignity is. Young people tend to value money and power and fame before they realize what's wise, and you could chalk it up to being young in a lot of cases, for which a lot of these people are in this situation. A girl 22 years old, maybe she thinks the world is one thing till she finds out, and then she changes. I don't know how much of a victim Cassie is. I don't know. A lot of what went on was, as it was described, she had a lot to do with the makings of circumstances, the putting together of circumstances, engaging in things that didn't have nothing to do with Diddy in regards to these people and these sex workers. As far as I could tell, without understanding psychology, I would say that it's very hard to call her a victim in every case of what was put in front of us. But she was definitely beaten. She was definitely treated in a way that I wouldn't want my sisters or the loved ones in my life to be treated. And for that, I am regrettable. And I see a great deal of ridiculousness that Diddy subjected her to at a very young age, before she was wise enough to know how to respect herself better. He, as an older man, if he were a good person, would have taught her how to do that instead of exploiting her ignorance for his own sexual gain, which is why I think he's an awful human being. As a man at 40 years of age, I don't feel it's my right to exploit young women or put them in a position to feel like I care when I don't, just so I can get off. I think that that's a shitty trait. I really do. I think it's an awful trait, and whatever comes his way, I won't celebrate, but I definitely think he deserves it. Whatever's coming for him doing that, especially when he's a father of daughters. You know, and he was old enough himself to know better. He was just out of control and lacking in character, and now we look at him as such. And anytime I see him on TV, I'm gonna think about these type of things. Anytime I see him anywhere at any time, I'm gonna think about just how willing he was to be more of what is no good in regards to men. What it is I would never want to be, or anything I would want to raise my child to be, what my mother raised me not to be, for which I'm proud of her for doing. Because it reflects much better upon me when I walk the street knowing that I ain't done nothing like that, or not prone to do anything like that, and don't condone anything like that in others. But I want all the women to follow me to understand, you know, though it's not my place to hold you accountable, there should be some accountability provided all of us for our actions, for our agreement to engage in certain things. And we gotta, you know, have that relationship with God to ask for self-awareness, self-respect, self-esteem, strength, and things like that. Help us want the right things, purging out things that are in our lives that make us go toward the wrong things. You know, we got to hold ourselves accountable for finding antidotes to the poisons that we put in our bellies. We can't just sit back and say we're victims just because that poison is out there and we just so happen to want it. We got to not want it, and we got to discipline ourselves and know why we should, and discipline the people in our community, or at least try to communicate with them why they should want to be held accountable against that for which they would be prone to do out of control. And so you don't find yourself in situations like Cassie or Puffy or Jane Doe. To want things for the right reasons, to read energy properly, and to love yourself and your God enough to stay out of certain circumstances, though they may be shiny. It may not be for your betterment. No pun intended. Though it may be something beautiful, it may not have beauty inside of it. It may not be attached to a living God. It may not be what it's cracked up to be. Maybe you're a victim of propaganda that pushed you in the wrong direction. But at some point in time, we all got to have some accountability for our actions and our choices and what it is we allow ourselves to be in this world toward others and toward the mirror. And I think that is a very important thing to say. We're wishing well for everybody. We all got to hold ourselves accountable and understand the world around you. A lot of what it is that you see is invested in by people who have leverage on others. So if you see a bunch of people agreeing with something, a lot of times it's just because someone who has influence has that ideology in their head and the ability to align that ideology with the rest of us, for better or for worse. So you have to think for yourself, and you gotta help coach the people around you and inspire the people around you to do things that represent themselves in a good way. Because the world's not often going to teach you that. The world sometimes is going to often do the opposite, just because a few people in position of power want that to be what the world is, and they have the ability to sway others to sure it happens. It doesn't mean that's what it should be. There's accountability that's lacking in a lot of those cases. And that's what we should be seeking in a lot of cases, in most cases, as we act, however we act, and bring about whatever consequences come with that. As my mother used to say, your sex is your sex. That's your business. Whatever you do in the bedroom with your partner or your partners, whatever you do is your business. But don't let it get out of control. Don't think that just because you run around with a bunch of power, a bunch of money, that you're not to be held accountable, or that the things that you've done won't be exposed. It may. There's still a living God you have to answer to, no matter how powerful you are, how influential you are, how manipulative you may be. At the end of the day, there's a God above you, staring down at you, waiting for you to do the right thing, waiting for you to involve him in your choices. waiting for you to ask him to instill in you the strength and the discipline away from certain things that make you worse and offend him. And if you don't believe in God, then you're susceptible to anything, whether you want to be offended by that or not. You're susceptible to anything. And don't get it confused. There are a lot of people who say they believe in God, like Puffy, but still going around doing the devil's work. That ain't nothing new. Lip service is just that. Anybody can read a script. What are you doing? Who are you when you lay your head down? Are you trying to be better? Or are you allowing yourself to feed your demons and getting yourself out of hand like this guy did? Allowing what you've accomplished in life and the money that you've gained to put you in a position to think that you're above reproach, for which does not mean you're not prone to receive the consequences of what comes from being out of control. Because the consequences still coming. Just because ain't nobody coming to hold you accountable doesn't mean that whatever holes you can fall into for being that way won't still be right in front of you to fall into. The accountability is what's supposed to be able to coerce you away from them holes. That's why you should welcome it into your life. And at the end of the day, man, for all the women out there who follow me, I just want you to know that your safety matters. Your safety matters. You matter. Your boundaries, they matter. Don't let the example of a society that is corrupted and the way that it handles people who do whatever they do against you make you feel like you don't matter. There's still a great deal of support out here for you. And we all have a responsibility to hold people accountable so that we don't collectively fall into the holes that are laid out in front of us for not. And I don't think we're doing a good enough job in our society right now of making women feel safe, making them feel heard, thwarting those who are out of control and absurd amongst us from having influence on the rest of us. And that's my point of view on that. And as a man, I stand firm to say we got a responsibility to try to be better in that way. I get it. A lot of us are sitting up saying, we victims too, this, that, and this thing. Be a man, bro. I know it's not popular to look in the camera and say that to men, but I'm going to say it anyway, bro. Because I'm not moved by those who are in position to not hold us accountable for being better. Influencing all of us to think that we're on the same par as it pertains to women in our victimhood. We are not. You are a man, brother. Okay? You're a man. You were given a certain level of strength of the mind and the body to be a provider, to be resilient, to be a warrior. Things that are supposed to come naturally to you. You were not made to be a nurturer. You were not made to be coddled. You're not made to be, underneath the arm of a woman as she carries you. You are not. That is not what this is supposed to be. The world wants to mold that to be what it is that we accept so that people can go unchecked for not being men. But at the end of the day, you're a man. And you can look at an animal and see the difference. If you can't see it in human beings, look at an animal. They'll tell you what type of man you're supposed to be versus what it is that you allow yourself to be in a lot of cases out here. What we look to everybody else say, is this acceptable? Yeah, no, it's not. It's not. You still have a job to do. You still have a responsibility. And that's what I want to say to each and every man that follows me. You still have a responsibility, bro. I don't give a damn if the world goes upside down and they tell you it's okay for you to do this and that and that and this. I don't give a damn how you identify this and that. At the end of the day, you're a man. You stand up and you be that. I don't care. And look, the gender fluid conversation, all of that is, I respect that we're in a space where people are determining who they want to be and they can have things cut off of them and placed on them at will. It's not my place to tell you who you are, but what I can tell you is, for the men out there, you know who you are. You are identifying as a man. You need to be that. You need to be that. Stop being weak out here. 'Cause a lot of us are weak. And we'll leave every excuse in the book to keep from facing our responsibility as men. And we'll do everything we can to allow ourselves to feed our demons and give ourselves passes and treat people however we want to treat them. And walk around like we ain't got no responsibilities. But at the end of the day, that is not what's real out here. That's not what the world should be about. If we're going to go forward and this world going to spin the way it's supposed to, men need to be men. Stop trying to be what they are not. And stop giving themselves passes for treating people poorly and all different types of weird stuff. Cheating people and lying, cowarding, and all different types of stuff that I'm seeing out here. Whining, slapping women and all different types of stuff. Punching women like they men, but ain't cowering when you face a man. That's weak. That is weakness. And they ain't got nothing to do with no sexuality. I'll tell you right now, if I were to raise a transgender boy, a boy that was born a boy, within him deciding he wants to be a woman, I'm still raising someone that I expect to handle themselves a certain way that I would not expect my daughter to. I don't care if he calls himself a woman, cuts pieces off of him, that's his business, I don't care. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna want him to do certain things that I'm not gonna ask her to do. That just is what it is. And if he don't like that, he's gonna have problems with his dad. Because at the end of the day, it's not about what you choose, it's about what you were given, what you were chosen for. It's not about what you choose, what you were chosen for. This world is not about you. You are in an environment. You make up an environment that's supposed to raise others. You are part of a village that raises children. And so your example is important. It is not okay for you to just pretend like you're the only person here and that everybody's supposed to fall at your knees and give you what you want because you exist. No. It's to be an example for others and how to be responsible as a person that raises a village of children. And so that's what I'm trying to instill in all of us, whether we choose this or think that or believe this or believe that. If you were born a man, then when it's time for you to step up and be one, I'm not sitting here saying, well, you ain't a man because you chose not to be. The Lord chose you to be a man. You were given the equipment. It's time for you it's time to do some heavy lifting. That's how I feel. And as a man, I look at men and say, this is what we do. Now, women, I expect women to do that with women. You understand what I'm saying? I'm not going to sit up here and say, women, you need to do this, get into that. I don't know what it takes to be a woman. I have no idea. But when it comes to us, I know what it takes to be a man because I am one. And I'm telling you, we need to step up and be that. Not wait for everybody else to tell us it's okay for us to do this or that. No, you got to be a man. Be one. Be one. And all that comes with that. When it's time to do the heavy lifting, get out there and move. When it's time to stand up and fight, your ass get out there in the front lines. When it's time to make sure that people are fed, we go out and we got to do what we got to do, man. And I speak to myself when I say that too. I'm not exempt from that. And so that's what I want to say, man. We got to step up. It ain't going to be what they're trying to make it in this world, where men can pretend to be girls and girls can pretend to be men and everybody just be kumbaya in whatever that space is. This is temporary, bro. This is temporary. As the world continues to spin, we're going to get so far into that, then we're going to learn lessons from that. Then the world spins back the way it was before. It's not going to be just us moving forward and everybody just pretending like everything is just whatever we choose and the world is about us. That is lacking in evolution, and we will evolve. And as we do, it's going to get back to the basics. It's going to get back to the basics. And as it does, they're going to look at this time where people pretended to be something they were not and accepted that, and the few were able to impose their delusions on the rest of the globe. They're going to look at that as lacking in evolution, and they're going to be glad to have evolved through that. That's exactly what this is going to be. And they'll take from it what was constructive, and they'll leave the rest with us back here in the past. I promise you that. In this video, I'm calling on men to be men, bro. And I'm asking us to evolve through the confusion of our current corrupted propaganda. Corrupted propaganda put in place by powerful people who didn't want to be held accountable for nothing, who didn't want to play their role for nothing, who wanted everything to be brought to them and didn't want to work for nothing. You know, at the end of the day, I gotta be better in that way as well. But I tell you the truth, man. I know when I'm at my best, I take pride in standing up for things. You see me on this camera, I stand up for what I know is right, what I was raised to believe is right. I didn't always do it right. I made certain decisions. I had to overcome things, still am. We'll see where it goes. But as far as me, you knew for a fact that when I walked down the street, I opened my mouth, I told you what I believed. And I wasn't worried about who was going to say what or feel what about what I said. I tried to respect myself based on the way my mother aligned me to believe respect should be wanted and deserved and earned. But as far as everything else, I wasn't going to go along, get along just because everybody did that. I don't care for that. That doesn't move me. And that's what I'm telling all of y'all. We got to step up and be men. We got to step up and protect our women. We got to step up and understand that we are not just within our groups and our races and our political structures, but anytime you see anybody going through anything, you're in a space where if you can do something about it, it's your responsibility to step up and do something about it. Anytime you cower, you reflect poorly upon yourself. And you allow yourself to be seen as something not respectful in the eyes of the Lord. That don't mean involve yourself in everything. You got to pick and choose your battles. But at the end of the day, that you would run from every battle is cowardice. That you would run from every responsibility is disgraceful. So that's what I want to say, man. When I watch this Diddy thing, I see a man that, though he was providing for his family, he was disgraceful in his ways and his actions and allowing himself to get out of hand based on the power that he had amassed in his life. And he had daughters, and he didn't respect them enough to treat the women in his life as anything more than a play toy or something that he could push around on his chessboard. And anytime I see that man, that is what's going to be going through my head. Not only his accomplishments, not the music, not the people he signed and all these different things. It's going to be how he treated women, young women in his life, so that he could feed his demons. And that is a shitty way to be looked at in this world. As an abuser. I don't know how much of his choices had to do with his drug addiction or how that addiction came about. He may want to fall back on that excuse as he goes forward. It might be the only way he could save face in any way. Not my place to care. I see the behavior and I see him getting off today. That's what I see. That's all I see. So that's pretty much my point of view, man. I'm not sitting up here celebrating nothing. I'm not sitting up here saying that this man needs to be in jail for the rest of his life. The jury did what they did. And as long as we continue to believe in this system, it's going to continue to do what it do. Period. You can believe in it, you cannot believe in it, this, that, and the third. That's my word on that. I've never thought this system was great. I never thought the system was great. I never thought the country was great. Y'all trying to make it great again. When was it ever great? When was that? For whom? For whom? And if you can only say a few people, then that's not great. And greatness embodies the ability, in my opinion, to stretch out amongst many people. If the whole doesn't look at it as great, then it's not great. If only one corner of the country believes it's great, if it's only one race of people in a country full of many races of people think the country was ever great, then it ain't that freaking great. That doesn't embody greatness. It leaves too many holes in its accuracy. You got black people say it ain't great. You got Hispanic people don't say it ain't great, and Native people say it ain't great. Asian people say it ain't great. A lot of the white people say it ain't great. How is it great? How was it ever great? Oh, it was great for some. And y'all call that great? That's not great. That's not what greatness is about. Greatness embodies a special energy amongst the fullness of it. And if everybody has something to say about it in a negative way, except for maybe a few, then how is that embodying greatness at all? You know, I want to leave this conversation in a different direction. Alligator Alcatraz is being promoted by Donald Trump and a few of his white supremacist appointed leaders. They pride themselves, they laughing, they smiling and saying how they've put this place in the middle of, I think, of Florida or something like that, surrounded by dangerous terrain, and one way in, one way out. It's really dangerous, and we're going to take all the illegals and we're going to put them there and wait for them to be deported. And they proud of this like this don't make them look terrible. They're proud of this like it doesn't make them look like horrible human beings who are going to be condemned for years and years, just like many who have done things like this have been condemned for years to years. Are we not aware that treating people bad makes us look bad? Are we not aware that rounding people up for the sake of their skin color doesn't make us look like responsible people? We talk about the concentration camps in the 20s that they put all the Japanese people in. We talk about what was done to the Jewish people in the Holocaust. The people who did that to those people did not look good. When you look back on those circumstances where people were treated poorly, the apartheid of South Africa, when you look at the people who did that, they were not looked at as good people. You should not be proud of that. That's not something you should want attached to your name. There's a certain callousness that comes with that makes people hate you and want to do things to you. Just like we said about what's going on with this genocide. People see what the images of what's going on in genocide, it arouses in them a certain vitriol toward those who are committing it. It makes people hate you and your people. And that's exactly what I see there. Is yet another example of that. Once again, people standing out in front, doing things that make people hate them, and then proceed to say this is how we are. And so when people hate, they hate the people around them who don't represent what they do in a lot of cases. And they just to sit back and say, yeah, we're us. No, you don't represent those people. And you understand that. And within your evil intentions, you're hoping that when people do lash out, that they'll lash out at people that look like you, not you, for treating people poorly. That's what's on my mind as I end this video, man. That alligator Alcatraz bullshit, that makes people hate people that look like Donald Trump, that look like the people around him. And likely when people want to judge people for that action, they're not going to affect them. They're going to affect the people that look like them. Just like I said yesterday, man. Just like when you see an idiot like Diddy doing what he does, now I get strange looks as a mid-aged black man. People look at me like I'm going to go out doing things that Diddy did. That's the essence of the devil in all of this. And if somebody want to kick Diddy's behind for doing that energy, they're going to lash out at me because they see me, not him. They're not going to attack him. They're going to attack everybody that looks like him, or everybody from his race, or everybody that looks like from his demographic. And that's the intention of the enemy when he uses people to do his bidding. His hope is that you, in your frustration, will lash out at people that are innocent who happen to fit that demographic, that you will hate everybody that fits that demographic, that you will loathe and discriminate against everybody that looks in that demographic. And that's what we need to grow. This is where I want to leave this video, man. Bdf 44, I thank y'all for watching. I'm out.